And you find it, I mean, you've expressed your disappointment and frustration that you aren't able to submit anything other than DNA.
Right, and that's my thing is I think that, you know, the original bill that was sponsored, I believe, by Ernie Chambers was to cover everything, you know, DNA, any kind of evidence like recantations, any kind of thing, any kind of evidence that would go towards a person's innocence, that the person could sit there, put in front of the court, and hopefully show that he's innocent, you know. And like I said, it'd still be up to the court to determine one way or the other if that evidence, you know, but still, you should have a hearing, you should have an opportunity to place that stuff in front of the court. And the thing is that DNA, the way they had it set up, DNA, the way they tore it down by the time it got passed was that DNA would be essentially the gateway. And once you had DNA, then you could put all the evidence that supported that DNA. But without that DNA, people like me, 99% of probably the population out there in the prison population, are not going to be able to have the opportunity to have an avenue to prove innocence unless you have DNA. I personally think that I could, you know, maybe, you know, I've been thinking about maybe trying under just filing something in the post-conviction action under that the Nebraska Constitution allows me that opportunity, because the Nebraska Constitution reflects the federal Constitution, and if you have the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual, then the Nebraska Constitution would also prevent cruel and unusual punishment as well. And it would be cruel and unusual under the 8th Amendment to execute or imprison someone who's actually innocent.
So do you think this will ever change?
I don't know. I mean, if you have people, more people like Chambers and stuff like that, you know, and those in the legislature that actually think that it's important to have these protections in place, you know, but I think too many times politics come involved. You know, you get Bruning on TV that sits there and says, you know, when he's talking about like Ryan, well, Ryan ain't raising no actual innocence claim when he's sitting there saying about the claims he's raising. But at the same time, I've been raising actual innocence and stuff and been maintaining my innocence, and he's, you know, he doesn't stand out there and go, hey, you know, and tell the court, hey, I'll file a motion and support him having a hearing, you know, because if he was to do that, it would happen, you know. All he had to do was sit there at the post-conviction level and say, you know, I support a motion to let him have a hearing and be able to put all evidence he has and let the court determine, based on that evidence that he puts forward, if he should get relief.
And do you think that, let's say that is the new rule, do you think that you will be exonerated?
I think if I was to have a hearing, if I was to have a full-fledged hearing where I could put on the evidence, I think I could prove my innocence. I really do.
So what do you do next?
Well, right now I'm waiting on the U.S. Supreme Court on my rehearing, and that has to do with the stuff the state didn't turn over during my trial, Brady materials. And see, that's the argument I make as well, is that not only do I have evidence that I believe proves my innocence, but at all stages of the process, I have not had a fair opportunity, because I had either judges that were committing misconduct, prosecutors that were committing misconduct, from not withholding Brady materials to, you know, other misconduct.
You say that you didn't take any part in the crimes that happened here. Do you feel any sort of responsibility for what happened?
Well, I mean, I can understand why, you know, I want to get on to the thing where I understand why people think that I had some part of it, because I had conversations with individuals over the years, you know, that say, oh, I believe you're innocent, but I also believe that you either had something to do with it, that you were at least there, or you at least knew it was going to happen. And I said, what makes you think that, you know, and they can't answer that, you know, because when they look at all the stuff, they say, well, you know, you just couldn't have done it. But at the same time, they still think that. And I finally had this conversation with this guy one time, and I said, and it just popped in my head, and I said, is it because of the sexual assault allegation? And he, without hesitation, said yes. And it seems like people are taking the sexual assault allegation and it's automatically jumping that, well, because of the sexual assault, I had to have a part in this, I had to have done that, you know, instead of that the sexual assault allegation was made, and I was waiting to go to court, and whatever happened on that. You know, if I got arrested, whatever was going to happen was going to happen.